Hey, John Martinez here. I do a lot of training of sales teams for real estate investors across the country. Basically, I train acquisition agents to buy more houses at deeper discounts. So as part of that, I get asked a whole lot of questions about how do I know if I have the right acquisition agent? Or if I'm hiring, what do I look for? And what questions do I ask? So one of the things that you really want to look for is if they're able to control their emotions or not. And I'll explain what this means, and I'll give you an example, and then I'm gonna give you the actual question to ask to figure this out on your own if you're interviewing, or even if you're just checking up on your current sales staff to figure out, do I have the right people in place or not? So when I say controlling emotions, I like football. I like to watch football. I'm a 49ers fan, so it hasn't been a good decade or two, but when you watch football, one of the most dramatic parts of the game is the field goal. Because field goals, I mean, they're intense. Usually when you're talking about a field goal, a lot of situations are, it's a make or break, do or die thing. I mean, I want you to imagine if you were a field goal kicker. The guy comes off the bench once or twice a game for seconds at a time while the rest of the team is just playing their hearts out. And when the field goal kickers need it, like, they need to perform. They need to have it dialed in. They've got one job to do, and oftentimes what it comes down to is winning or losing the game. So everything else that the rest of the team did and you know, sacrificed through and just really killed themselves to do is win this game. And it comes down to this guy hopping off the bench for a few seconds to kick a field goal. So if you can imagine that kind of pressure, right? Well, what the other team tries to do to get the field goal kicker off of his game is they do something called icing the kicker. So when the field goal kicker is about to kick the ball, they call a timeout. And what this does sometimes, if a kicker can't control their emotions, is it really it'll wind them up a little bit. They'll get frazzled, they'll overthink things. And by the time they get back out onto the field to kick that field goal, their mind's not in the right spot. They can't control their emotions, they're all over the place. And chances are they're gonna miss that field goal and basically ruin the game, lose it for the entire team. Now, really good kickers that have been in the league 10 or 20 years, one thing that sets them apart is their ability to control their emotions. So even though other teams try to ice them and try to get in their head, they stay focused. They know exactly what they're there to do. So whether they're being iced, or if they're in a loud stadium where everyone's making a ton of noise, or if it's the game-winning kick, even during a playoff game or the Super Bowl, the best of the best know how to control their emotions, and they execute just as if they were in practice or they're on the sideline kicking into a net. So what you want is someone on your sales team with that same ability to control their emotions, that can't get iced. Because if they're in a sales call and something unexpected happens, they're gonna forget their playbook, they're gonna get thrown off. If they're in a sales call and something really uncomfortable happens and they can't control their emotions, they're gonna lose track of where they are, they're gonna stop seeing what's happening in front of their face, they're gonna stop listening and hearing what their prospect says, or they're not gonna be able to pick up on certain cues, they're gonna skip steps. Basically, their sales process, their playbook, what they're there to do, the one thing they're there to execute is gonna go out the window. So you need a salesperson who can control their emotions and stay on target no matter what is going on around them, no matter how heated the situation gets, how uncomfortable it gets. If they're throwing a curveball, it doesn't matter, they need to be able to control their emotions. So if you're interviewing salespeople, or you're just checking up with your team to see if they're able to control their emotions or not, you can just ask them a simple question to figure that out. And that question is gonna be something like, hey, listen, I want you to tell me about the weirdest or the most uncomfortable thing that's ever happened to you during a sales call, and how did you handle it? What did you do? What was going through your head? What were you thinking? And if they say, hey, I completely freaked out, I lost my space, I lost track, I shut down the sales call, I was frazzled. If they get frazzled just talking about it, and you see that they get flustered and all that kind of stuff, and you know this person can't control their emotions, and when things go sideways, they're gonna lose it. But if the person says, well, you know, I stuck to the game plan, I finished what I was there to do, if they remain calm and composed as they tell you about it, this is the type of person who is not going to get iced. They can control their emotions. So when you're interviewing salespeople, when you're talking to people on your team, you want to make sure they've got the ability to control their emotions so they stick to the playbook, so they execute on the sales process that you taught them. Now you can ask them that question in interviews. You can use assessments to figure that out. I recommend the OMG assessment because it'll figure it out a little bit better than at least what I'm able to do in interviews, because it'll ask it 4 or 5 different ways and keep salespeople who are professional interviewers from telling you what you want to hear. You'll find the truth with an assessment. But regardless of how you ask the question, the most important thing is that you ask the question and you figure out, can you and do you control your emotions? That's what makes some of the best salespeople out there the best.